My name is Alice, and I am a 20-year-old who has often felt sidelined within my own family, especially in comparison to my younger brother, Sam, who is 14 and adopted. Sam was brought into our family about 9 years ago, and strangely, he appears to blend in more seamlessly than I do. My parents have even remarked humorously how much more he resembles them, suggesting he is more their ideal child. Though their jokes feel hurtful and serious to me, our family could easily grace the covers of lifestyle magazines, embodying conventional beauty, a standard I feel I don't meet. Diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as a child, managing my weight has always been a challenge. My eating was heavily controlled by my parents, pushing me to sometimes eat secretly, as their monitoring felt more like deprivation. About 5 months ago, my health took another hit with a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which has intermittently confined me to a wheelchair due to severe symptoms. The adjustment has been hard, not just physically but also mentally. Already an introvert, I now spend most of my time in my room, trying not to impose on anyone, feeling deeply lonely but resigned to not being a burden. Despite my struggles, I have tried to maintain some normalcy, like participating in our annual family Christmas photo, a long-standing tradition. This year, however, as I dressed up and prepared to join in, my presence was unexpectedly rejected. My parents awkwardly suggested the photo be limited to just them and Sam, citing my wheelchair as a reason, saying it would spoil the picture. I offered to stand for a few shots, but they refused, making it clear they did not want me included at all. Devastated, I retreated to my room and wept, with no one coming to check on me. This heartbreak was what prompted me to call my grandmother and confide in her about everything. My grandmother, a pillar of strength who rebuilt her life after being widowed early, listened with empathy and took immediate action by altering her will in response. This shocked my parents and brought to light the deep issues within our family dynamics. This sequence of events not only exposed the superficiality and conditional acceptance in my family, but also underscored my grandmother's unwavering support for me in my most challenging times. For causing drama and making the situation uncomfortable, despite their harsh words, I had made peace with the fact that their acceptance was conditional and unlikely to change. My grandmother has always been a beacon of strength and inspiration for me. Her unconditional love is a stark contrast to the conditional acceptance I felt from my parents. Although I had hoped for a long time that my parents would change their ways and treat me better, that Christmas incident was a harsh reminder that it might never happen. Each time my grandmother suggested that I could live with her, I hesitated, clinging to the hope of familial acceptance. However, that day, I finally accepted her offer, realizing that my presence in my own home was merely tolerated, not wanted. The pain of feeling excluded by my own family was profound, but my grandmother was always there to support and comfort me. During our phone call, as I sobbed and shared my heartache, she assured me she would be there to take me away as soon as she returned from her cruise. She lives an adventurous life, always surrounded by friends and laughter, a stark contrast to the solitude of my own room where I confined myself. The days leading up to her arrival were filled with silence at home. I went about my daily routine, school, and seclusion. My parents and Sam carried on as if nothing was wrong, masking the tension that lay beneath the surface. When my grandmother arrived, I was the one who welcomed her into our home. My parents were unsuspecting of the change about to unfold. They greeted her casually, unaware that she knew of their exclusion of me from the family photo. When she confronted them, they were initially confused about how she could have known, but soon realized I must have told her. Instead of apologizing, they dismissed the incident, repeating their rationale that they didn't want to bother me with standing or having my wheelchair in the photo. I couldn't hold back any longer. I told them and my grandmother that their excuses were just a cover for their discomfort with including me. I pointed out the disparity in how they treated Sam and me, highlighting that despite Sam being adopted, he was embraced as their own, whereas I, their biological daughter, was treated as an outsider. Sam averted his gaze, perhaps in guilt or acknowledgement of the truth in my words. My parents' reaction was defensive. They accused me of being dramatic and spoiled, expecting an apology from me for simply voicing the inequality and neglect I felt. They could not see how their actions and words were not just personal slights, but deep wounds to my sense of belonging. As painful as it was to confront these truths, my grandmother's presence gave me the strength to stand up for myself. Her unwavering support made me realize that I deserved to be in an environment where I was valued and loved unconditionally. With her, I knew I would find the acceptance and love that was so lacking in my own home. I was ready to leave, not just the house, but the conditional love that had defined my existence there. My grandmother had promised to take me with her, and I trusted her completely, ready for a new beginning where I could truly feel like part of a family. But now that we've started to reconnect, things are gradually improving between us. The conversation with my grandmother had opened my eyes to many things, including how my brother had been influenced by our parents' behavior towards me. I guess he had picked up on their cues without fully understanding the impact of his actions on me. But his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and reach out to mend our relationship meant a lot to me in that moment at home. When I was ready to defend myself further, my grandmother stepped in, making it clear she was there to put an end to the mistreatment I had endured for so long. My parents appeared bewildered when she announced she was taking me to live with her. They had always made me feel like a burden, and now they didn't even resist letting me go. It was a painful confirmation of what I had always felt, that they didn't truly want me as part of the family. The silence that followed her announcement was deafening. When my grandmother revealed her decision to take me away, my parents initially seemed indifferent, but their facade cracked when she declared that she was cutting them out of her will. Suddenly, their true colors showed. The mention of inheritance set them off as they scrambled to defend their position, revealing just how materialistic their motives were. My grandmother, having been a successful grocery store owner, had accumulated considerable wealth, which I had never really thought much about because I loved her for who she was, not what she had. Unlike my parents, my love for her was unconditional. She showed my parents the revised documents, making it clear that everything would now go to Sam and me. The drama escalated as they pleaded and bargained with her, but my grandmother remained unmoved by their tears. She instructed me to pack my belongings and prepare to leave with her immediately. I had been ready for this moment, knowing deep down that living with her would be a much healthier environment for me. As I gathered my things, my parents continued their futile pleas, but Sam was the only one who truly seemed to care about saying goodbye. Driving away from that house was a liberating yet bittersweet moment. I was leaving behind a lot of painful memories, but I was also moving towards a new chapter of my life, one filled with genuine love and support from my grandmother. Living with her has brought so much peace to my life. Being closer to school allows me more sleep and less stress in the mornings, and every day feels like a step toward healing. Sam's message soon after I left was a significant gesture. He apologized for his past behavior and expressed his gratitude for our family, acknowledging how much better his life was because of our parents' decision to adopt him and my consistent treatment of him as a true brother. He was eager to start anew and repair our bond, which we began to do by spending time together at school. These changes were not easy, but they were necessary. The truth had been painful, but it also set me free. Now, with my grandmother's support and a rekindling relationship with Sam, I was finally starting to feel like I belonged to a family that truly cared about me. Despite the complicated nature of our family dynamics, Sam has always been treated as a full member of the family, especially by our parents. Recently, during one of our casual hangouts, Sam mentioned something that's been weighing heavily on me. We were just chatting, and I couldn't help but ask about what was happening back at the house. He shared that tensions were high between our parents. Apparently, they've been caught up in a blame game ever since I moved out. My mom accused my dad of being the reason I felt pushed away for so long, particularly pointing to his suggestion to exclude me from the family Christmas photo. On the other hand, my dad argued that my mom had always overreacted to challenges, making it seem like having me as a child was the most difficult task she had ever faced. Sam casually mentioned that he was worried they might end up getting divorced, given the current state of their relationship. This comment, though made in passing, stuck with me and has left me feeling uneasy ever since. It's irrational, but part of me can't shake the feeling that if they do get divorced, somehow it would be my fault. Maybe I overreacted by feeling hurt over the photo incident, and perhaps they never intended to make me feel like a burden. These thoughts have been difficult to dismiss, and I find myself in a loop of self-blame and regret, even though I know deep down that their marital issues are not my responsibility. It's hard not to feel like a doormat for even thinking this way, but it's what's been on my mind, and I can't seem to push it away. That's why I'm turning to this community for some objective reassurance. To provide some context for those who might be curious, my grandmother recently revised her will to leave everything to Sam and me, primarily because of how our parents mishandled things with me. Sam hadn't been part of the negative behaviors, and at his young age, my grandmother and I both feel he deserves a chance to rectify any past mistakes. It wouldn't be fair to push him away because of our parents' actions. If we did, we'd be no different from them. People have also asked about Sam's background. His biological mother was just 17 when she had him and had to leave college due to her pregnancy and struggles with substance abuse. His father was mostly absent, only appearing sporadically in his life. Sam's maternal grandparents tried several times to help their daughter straighten out her life and be a good mother, but eventually they encouraged her to consider adoption when Sam was 7, as they saw it as a chance to provide him with a better future. My parents were already considering adoption due to the complications of my mother's first pregnancy and didn't want to risk going through that again. They knew Sam's biological mother's cousin from college, which is how they learned about Sam's situation. They fostered him for a while before adopting him officially. Sam has stayed in touch with his grandparents, meeting them monthly. But he has not had contact with his parents since the adoption. His mother finds it too painful to see him, and his father has completely disappeared from his life. Navigating these complex family relationships has been challenging, but opening up about these issues here helped me process my feelings and, hopefully, gain some clarity and support from others who might have similar experiences. Their sudden apology, although needed, felt insincere and more about them wanting to mend their image before I left for college. It seemed like an attempt to smooth things over superficially without addressing the real issues that caused the rift in the first place. In the past, I've made some comments in frustration about Sam being adopted during a heated argument, which I regret. I've apologized to him because he means the world to me, and I never intended to make him feel like he was any less a part of our family. I've always seen Sam as my brother, not just because we were raised together, but because I genuinely care for him. Despite the rocky phases we've experienced, I'm committed to maintaining a strong relationship with him. We've been through a lot due to our parents' behavior, and I refuse to let that drive a wedge between us anymore. I even offered Sam the option to come and live with me and our grandmother if things at home become unbearable. The idea isn't to pull him away from our parents, but to provide him with a safe and peaceful alternative if he needs it. In my recent updates, I've been overwhelmed by the support from this community. It's been reassuring to hear from others who've been in similar situations, and it's helped me feel less isolated. After discussing with my grandmother my fears of being responsible for my parents' marital issues, she firmly reminded me that I wasn't to blame. She pointed out that my parents had been directing their frustrations at each other because they no longer had me to focus on. This shift in their dynamics wasn't caused by me standing up for myself, but by their inability to handle their own problems constructively. If they end up divorcing, it would indeed be sad, but it is not my burden to bear. Sam and I have discussed this too, and he reassured me that he didn't intend to make me feel guilty about their problems. He was just answering my question. Recently, my parents visited unexpectedly to discuss our strained relationship. They took time off work to talk, but it wasn't a great day for me, and I wasn't in the right headspace to engage. They expressed a desire to spend time with me before I head off to college and attempted an apology, which they framed in a way that suggested they were sorry I felt offended, rather than acknowledging that their actions were inherently hurtful. This phrasing didn't sit well with me. It felt like they were dodging the core issue. My reaction was to suggest they put their thoughts in an email or return another time. When I was more prepared to talk, I needed space to process, and rushing a conversation wasn't going to resolve anything substantial. This might seem like I was avoiding the issue, but it was necessary for me to manage the situation on my terms, especially considering the emotional toll their previous behavior had on me. Sam understands my stance and supports my decision to handle things this way. We've promised each other not to let family disputes influence our bond. Whatever the outcome with our parents, our commitment is to remain supportive of each other, ensuring that the challenges we face don't erode the trust and love we've rebuilt. This approach is about maintaining our well-being and ensuring that regardless of what happens in our family, our relationship remains intact and strong. After a series of challenging interactions, it's become clear that my parents' approach to our issues isn't just about understanding me or correcting past mistakes. During a recent attempt at conversation, I tried explaining that my upset feelings were due to their offensive actions. However, rather than acknowledging this and working to make amends, they shifted the focus, claiming my distance was to blame for their ignorance of my struggles. This just confirmed my suspicion that they were incapable of genuine apologies and were more interested in manipulating the situation to make me feel responsible. Feeling increasingly frustrated and realizing that this cycle of blame and guilt was going nowhere, I asked them to leave. They resisted, insisting we needed to have a full discussion, as if a mere conversation could mend the deep-rooted issues between us. They seemed to think that because of what they had provided for me, which were essentially basic parental responsibilities, they deserved this dialogue. I couldn't engage further without becoming more upset, so I decided to retreat to my room. At that point, my dad escalated the situation by demanding I stay and talk. Thankfully, my grandmother was there to intervene. She firmly told my dad that raising his voice wasn't acceptable in her home, especially after the way they had treated me. She made it clear that if I chose not to engage, they had to respect that decision and leave. This incident was an eye-opener for both me and them. It underscored that their main concern was how this familial discord might look to others, rather than the actual well-being of their children. They were worried about appearances, fearing what people might think if they knew I had moved in with my grandmother. I was beyond caring about their concerns for reputation. I was focused on my own future and healing. After they left, my grandmother and I discussed whether I wanted to see them again soon. For now, my answer was a resounding no. She supported my decision, assuring me that she wouldn't allow them to just drop by uninvited next time. I'd also talked to Sam about their visit. He was surprised by their actions and expressed that the mood at home was gloomy since their return. While I felt for him, I knew I needed to maintain this distance for my own mental health. I'll be leaving for college in a week. I got into my first choice school, and my grandmother has arranged everything for my move. She'll even stay with me for the first couple of weeks to help me settle into my new apartment. It's a big step, living on my own, but I'm ready and looking forward to what the future holds. My mental health has significantly improved without the constant stress from my parents. Sam and I plan to keep in close contact through FaceTime, aiming to chat at least once a week. Although I'm sad to leave my current life and the security of my grandmother's home, I'm genuinely excited about starting this new chapter.